Jerusalem, ex ad orationem meum, ad teum discargo venient. Requiem eterno. Domine eis Domine. Et lux perpetua
Dominus vobiscum. Oremus. Deus cui propterum est miserere semper et pacere. Deus qui inter Apostolicos sacerdotes famulum tuum Michaelum sacerdotale fecisti dignitate vigere, prestaque sumus ut decorum quoque perpetua gregetur consortio, per Dominum nostrum Iesum Christum Filium tuum, qui te convivit et regnat in unitate Spiritus Sancti Deus per omnia saecula saeculorum.
Amen.
Lectio Epistolae Beati Pauli Apostoli ad Thessalonicenses. Fratres, nolumus vos ignorare de domientibus ut non contristemini sicut et ceteri qui spem non habens. Si eram credimus quod Iesus mortuus est et resurrexit, ita et Deus eos qui domierunt per Iesum adducet cum eo. Hoc enim vobis dicimus in verbo Domini, quia nos qui vivimus, qui residui sumus, in adventum Domini non preveniemus eos qui dormierunt. Quoniam ipse Dominus agnus et in vocia cangeli et in turbe Dei descende de cielo, et mortui qui in Christo sunt resurgent primi. Deinde nos qui vivimus, qui reliquimur simur rapiemur comilis in nubibus obviam Christu in eira, et sic semper cum Domino erimus. Itaque consolamini in vicem in verbis istis.
Requiem gratia tua, illis Dies ire, dies illa, sovet seclum in favilla, te spere David concebilla. Quantus tremor est futurus, quando iudex est venturus, Cunta stricte etis prosperus. Tobum iruns pacem sonum, sepulcra regionum, proget omnes ante tronum, nostra pebit et natura, cum resurget creatura, iudicanti responsura. Liber scriptus proferetur, in quo totum continetur, unde mundus judicetur. Iudex ergo cum sederebit, quid latet apparebit, nil in multum remanebit. Quid sumis et tunc dictorus, quem patronum rogatorus, convix justus et securus, Rex tremende majestatis, qui salvando salvas gratis, salvame fons pietatis. Recordare Iesu pie, quod sum causa tue vie, ne me pedas illa die. Quadens mesedis illa sus, redemisti crucem passus, tantus labor non sit casus. Juste iude exorcionis, donum fac remissionis, ante diem rationis. In genis quotam quam reus, quod parum et votus meus, supplicanti pace Deus. Qui Mariam absolvisti, et latronem exaudisti, mihi quoque spemdedisti, preces meae non sunt digne, sed tu bonus fat benigne, ne pereni trenerigne. Intero ves locum prestam, et abedis me sequestram, statuens in parte dextram. Confrontatis maledictis, flammis agribus addictis, vocam mecum benedictis. Ora supplex et acclinis, quod contritum quasi cinis, de decoram mei finis. Lacrimos dies illa, quam resurgent ex favilla. Judicatus malleus, uicego pace Deus. Via Iesus Domine, dona eis requiem. Amen.
Dominus vobiscum.
Decum spiritu tuo.
Sequentia Sancti Evangelii secundum Ioannes.
Gloria tibi, Domine.
In illo tempore dixit Iesus tubis Iudeorum. Amen, amen, dico vobis. Quia venetur et nunc est, quando mortui audient vocem Filii Dei, et quia dierent vive. Sic enim pater habet vitam in semet ipso, sic deret et Filio habere vitam in semet ipso. Et potestatem dedite judicium facere quia Filius hominis est. Nolite mirari hoc quia venator in coomnes, qui in monumenti sunt, audient vocem Filii Dei procedent qui bona fecerunt in resurrectionem vitae, qui vero mala egerunt, in resurrectione iudici. Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. I'll say just a few brief words this evening in remembrance of Father Michael Anderson, who passed away last Tuesday, priest of the Diocese of Wellington, who in the later years of his life celebrated the traditional Mass and only the most holy and true and traditional Tridentine Mass. Father Michael Anderson was, as a young man, went to Rome, was sent to Rome by his diocesan bishop in order to further his studies there. He became a canon lawyer, studying at the Propaganda of the Faith. And at a young age, in his mid-20s, he was ordained a priest in Rome and then sent back to New Zealand to work in the Diocese of Wellington, where he was very much involved with marriages and very much involved with dealing with many marriage cases. He was also a parish priest at Whanganui and was, in fact, of the parish priest of the very parish in which my great-grandmother was a member, and he did the funeral of my great-grandmother, as I learnt only a few days ago. Father Michael Anderson never really understood the problems in the Church as originating from the Second Vatican Council until he read further. It was, in fact, in the early 1980s when his housekeeper and niece would start to investigate further, very, very dissatisfied with the changes in the Church, and especially the renewal taking place in the parishes in the Wellington Diocese in the 1980s, investigated further to see if there couldn't be somewhere, somehow, a better Mass, a better source of truth, a better option to this devastating Novus Ordo Mass and the renewal that was going on. She stumbled across the society, and Father Anderson warned her against it. Don't go. You mustn't go. I tell you not to go. She went. She went, and she came back delighted with what she discovered when she attended the conferences of, I think she attended the conferences of Archbishop Lefebvre and then later on several masses of the priests of the society. Father Anderson would say that he felt at that moment like a husband telling his wife not to do something very important and his wife disobeying. Well, his niece, fortunately in this regard, knew that the obedience to God is greater than obedience to man, and fortunately in this regard she made a right decision. It was thanks to her that he began to take some interest in the society, and Father Gentili writes a marvellous letter only a day after, in fact it arrived in my mailbox the day of his burial, in which he describes the very first encounter of Father Anderson with the Society of St. Pius X. It would be, I think, best for me to read what Father Gentili wrote rather than paraphrase it, because it really comes from one who knew him personally, from one who had known him from the very first moments that he came back to the traditional Mass. Father Gentili writes, I remember one summer evening almost 30 years ago when our Wanganui Priory was still in Campbell Street during the celebration of a Mass, I noticed a mature couple I had never seen before. They were at the pews, devoutly hearing Mass. Once Mass was over and the vestments were back in the drawers, I closed the church for the day and went home to the house. A few minutes later, someone knocked at the priory door. It was this mature couple who wanted to talk to the prior. I then let them in. Prepared some coffee once. The silver-haired gentleman introduced himself as Father Michael Anderson, a parish priest from Lower Hutt. The lady next to him was indeed Judith, his cousin, as well as a faithful and zealous housekeeper. Due to his very interesting conversation, I realized that he was a very conservative-minded priest who was not just suffering at the hands of his local ordinary, Cardinal Williams, but he actually was being persecuted by him due to Father Anderson's attachment to the Church's traditional ways. Father despised the new Mass, the modernist changes in the Church. Our fascinating conversation went on and on for about 2 hours. Finally, Father said it was time for them to head back to Lower Hutt. Having walked my visitor to the car and bid him goodbye, I did not let him start the engine before asking Father whether he actually celebrated the traditional Mass. Father gave me a negative answer and added that as parish priest he had to daily celebrate the Mass for his faithful, and that daily Mass had to be currently the Rome-approved Mass, the new Mass. I retorted, "Look, Father, try and try hard to celebrate the traditional Mass. Celebrate it as many times as possible whenever you can. Even if you have to binate or celebrate it in hiding, please do celebrate the traditional Mass as it works miracles by itself." Father replied by moving his hand to and fro as if reluctantly saying, "No, I do not think it will be possible, Father. I do not think it will be possible. I am a parish priest, you understand?" And then the car took off. About a couple of months later, I actually do not remember who, but someone told me that the Lower Hutt parish priest, Father Anderson, who had visited me in Wanganui, had got ill, fell ill, and seriously ill. If my memory does not fail me, I believe that Father all of a sudden was hit not just with one serious ailment, nor with two, but he fell to 3 different rather serious maladies. So much so that as Father had to remain at home and bedridden for several months, the Cardinal gave him sickness leave of absence until he would get better and back on his feet, ready to resume his position at the parish. I know well indeed what Father Gentili is relating here, because as a young teenager, Father's place of convalescence was just down the road from where my family was living. And so once we heard that he was there, my own father went to visit him, and he said that he was celebrating Mass but only in a private capacity. And of course he was not allowed to make it public, nor was he supposed to invite anyone. But would 5 o'clock be a good time for you? Now finally, away from the malicious prying eyes and in the safety of his own private home, such God-sent occasion gave Father the opportunity of coming back to the celebration of the Mass at a small makeshift altar in his own living room, according to the Roman rite, as it had been taught to him back in the seminary years in Rome, where, as a very young cleric, he was made a priest in 1954 by Pietro Cardinal from Asani Biondi. So finally, Father Anderson had come back to his beloved traditional Mass of his youth. In Tribaro Taridei Adem Qualificat Juventutem Meam, I will enter unto the altar of God, unto God who gives joy to my youth. Day after day, then, Father's truly Roman heart would deeply relish in the accurate, exact, and above all, devout celebration of that Holy Mass of his youth according to the traditional liturgy. Father would make the point of pronouncing the ritual Latin words flawlessly. Upon paying close attention, you could perceive smooth reminiscences of a soft Italian accent. During this period of his serious sickness, Father fell in love once again with the traditional Roman Mass. He really fell in love with the old and the holy Mass of the Roman Church. Of course, how on earth could he now go back to the new Mass, or rather, the new Mess? Certainly not. Father was a strong man, as well as somewhat stubborn, and would not just let any silly sickness or sicknesses stop him. In his typical obstination, eventually Father got well. As the Cardinal had heard of Father's slow recovery, he was expecting him to resume his parish assignment one day or another. Instead, at his desk arrived a letter from Father Anderson's that caught him off guard. Father was officially notifying his ordinary thereby that he was leaving his position as parish priest due to his age and his recent illnesses as the reason. Though the letter did not state it, undoubtedly there was yet another reason, for Father had come across an old love. And that old love of his, the Roman Mass of his youth, truly snatched for good Rather's genuinely priestly soul. From now on, not only would Father Anderson daily celebrate the traditional Roman Mass, but he would turn around his lower Hutt home and make it a Mass centre, and even turn Judith into his sacristan. In the end, if sometime any of our Society of St. Pius X faithful could not attend the Sunday evening Mass at our chapel in Linden, they were welcome at Sunday morning Mass at Father Anderson's. As well, the opposite would occur with Father Anderson's own faithful, and even when the Society of St. Pius X priests were called to special trips that would not let them celebrate in Linden, whether on the first Friday or the first Saturday or the Sunday, Father Anderson would gladly help them out and hear confessions, give benediction with the Blessed Sacrament, and celebrate the Mass at St. Michael's in their place. In fact, the little Mass centre of Father Anderson's in Lower Hutt, which was nothing other than his own home, became so crowded that people were attending Mass from outside the windows and in the hallways and in the kitchen. There would easily be up to 30 people at any Sunday Mass. Not only Father Anderson frequently received the Society of St. Pius X priests at his table, whether for lunch, afternoon tea or evening tea, but in due course Father even found himself being the regular confessor of them all. Not only was Father Anderson the regular confessor of the priests, he was also a regular confessor of the faithful, for as many of you know, he would come religiously to Wanganui every month in order to hear confessions as an extraordinary confessor on the Thursday afternoons while there was adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. That took a lot out of Father, especially in his later years, for he would be in the confessional for anything up to 3 to 4 hours straight. The Whanganui faithful obviously making full benefit of his services. The Father Anderson would not just stop there in his efforts to help. He would also undertake his own apostolate in the Wellington area, where he would not only be celebrating Mass in his own house, but he would extend it to First Friday Masses in a small church in Paikokariki, where faithful would gather every First Friday. He would travel an hour one way to be able to give them the opportunity to attend Mass. And there were many who would attend who would never have otherwise been able to attend. Many who would receive confession for the first time after 10, 20, 30 years, thanks to this service that Father Anderson was offering them. The priests of the Society continued to visit him even up until his last days. And in his last days, as you know, due to his illness and his ailments, he was confined to a retirement home, the Home of Compassion in Upper Hutt, where he passed away last Tuesday. God rest his soul. We offer this Mass and ask you to offer also your prayers for the eternal rest of Father Anderson, who has helped us not only so much, but has been indeed a great light and an inspiration to priests throughout New Zealand who sought his advice on traditional matters, and also who were inspired to perhaps return to tradition through his efforts. There is an interesting connection between him and Father Muley in Auckland. Both are of similar age, both went to the same seminary, both studied canon law, both returned to New Zealand, one to Wellington, the other to Auckland. And on Father Anderson's own home, wall in his own home, is a picture, a photo of Father Anderson's first Mass, and the MC at that first Mass is Father Muley. Both remain faithful to tradition, and we therefore have a great debt and a duty to pray for the eternal rest of their souls. Remember, priests have a far higher dignity and calling, far greater responsibilities, therefore their judgment is far more severe than that faithful, and so their need for our prayers and our masses to be offered for them is all the more necessary. And that is why we ask that if you are able to contribute to a Gregorian for Father Anderson, that you place your contribution in the collection basket on the Sunday, clearly marked in an envelope, Requiem Mass or Gregorian for Father Anderson. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. Dominus vobiscum. Oremus. fratres. Per omnia saecula saeculorum. Amen. Dominus vobiscum.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
Susum cauda.
Habemus ad Dominum.
Gratias agamus Domino Deo nostro.
Dignum et justum est.
Vere dignum et justum est, decum et salutare. Nos tibi semper et ubique gratias agere. Domine Sancte Pater Omnipotens Aeterne Deus, et Christum Dominum nostrum, in quo nobis spes beati resurrectionis effusit, ut quos contristat certo moriende conditio, eostem consoletur futurae immortalitatis promissio. Tuis enim fidelibus Domine vita mutatur non tolitur, et dissoluta terrestrus huios incolatus domo, aeterna in celes habitatio comparatur. Et ideo cum angelis ad archangelis, cum thrones et dominationibus, cumque omni militia celestis exercitus, hymnum gloriae Tuae canimus, sine fine dicentas.
Sanctus, Sanctus Dominus Deus Sabaoth, pleni sub celi et terrae gloria Tua. Hosanna in excelsis, benedictus qui venit in nomine Domini.
nobisque peccatoribus. Per omnia saecula saeculorum. Oremus, preceptus salutaribus moniti, et divina institutione formati audemus dicere. Pater noster qui es in celis, sanctificetur nomen tuum, adveniat regnum tuum, fiat voluntas tua, sicut in cielo et in terra. Panem nostrum quotidianum da nobis hodie, et dimite nobis debita nostra, sicut et nos dimittimus debitoribus nostris, et ne nos inducas in tentationem, per omnia saecula saeculorum. Pax Domini sit semper vobiscum.
Agnus Dei, qui tollis peccata mundi, dona eis requiem. Agnus Dei, qui tollis peccata mundi, dona eis requiem. Agnus Dei, qui tollis peccata mundi, dona eis requiem sempiternum.
Domine non sum dignos. Domine non sum dignos. Domine non sum dignos. Reato vestri omnipotens Deus, et missis peccatis vestris perducat vos ad vitam aeternam. Indulgentiam absolutionem et remissionem peccatorum vestitorum, revoat verbis omnipotens et misericors Dominus. Ecce agnus Dei, ecce qui tollit peccatum mundi, Domine non sum dignus ut intres tectum meum, sed tantum dic verbo et sinabitur anima mea. Domine non sum dignus ut intres tectum meum, sed tantum dic verbo et sinabitur anima mea. Domine non sum dignus ut intres tectum meum, sed tantum dic verbo et sinabitur anima mea.
Lux aeternam, Requiescat eis Domine, Rum sanctis tuis in aeternum, qui apios est. Requiem aeternam Dona eis Domine, et lux per
Dominus vobiscum. Oremus. Prosit quesumus Domini animae famili Tui, Michaeli, sacerdotis misericordiae Tui, implorata clementia. Ut eos in prospera vide credit aeternum capiat te miseranti consortium. Et Dominum nostrum Iesum Christum Filium Tuum, qui te convivit et regnat in unitate Spiritus Sancti Deus per omnia saecula saeculorum. Dominus vobiscum. Requiescat in pace.
Calamitatis et miseriae,
Christum Dominum nostrum.
Amen.
Requiem aeternam Domini Domine.
Et lux perpetua luceat Dei.
Requiescat in pace.
Amen.
Anima eis et anima omnia fidelium Deum forum per misericordiam Dei requiescant in pace.
Amen. Agonize